Oh yeah, we know you've got flaws. You've been pretty vocal about it, almost to a bothersome level. And you get angry for good reasons? Huh. Flaws are an important character trait to have, as it allows for natural character interactions or thought processes when facing conflicts. Some can be brashness when handling the problem, or lack of patience when it comes to listening to others. These flaws are what gives these characters personality to bounce off of others, and allow those characters to work with to overcome to reach a solution. So maybe that's why I've gravitated towards Starlight when it comes to the character I find more interesting of the two. I still love Sunset, but over time she just doesn't stand out in any way other than, I'm the leader and I'm an awesome character who is there for you, always. Always. Now, is that better than being a more magic-prone Twilight or snarky Spike? Well, I'm gonna truly analyze these characters and their arcs into the characters they become today, flaws and all, if any. Now, I'm going to be tackling this using Lily Orchard's 70x7 video as a guideline, and boy has this video been a long time coming. But not in that way. In fact, I'm not going to need any of you here, because this is going to be a serious analysis. Well, about as serious as analyzing characters in children's media can get. Regarding this video, it's true I hated it when it came out, resulting in me leaving a pretty emotion-fueled comment, which makes me really happy that Lily filters them. While I wasn't outright insulting her, more just the format of the video, it was clear I was definitely way too emotional over the whole thing. So now, several months later, I can look at this calmly and see my problem was more with my expectations. Most of the video, while fairly criticizing Starlight, is spent building Sunset up, and only up. I want to see Sunset receive some criticism that is then confronted to build her up again. I wanted a double-sided character analysis, so that's what I'm going to do today, with a less emotion-fueled mindset. So it's clear I may have shown some bias towards Starlight, so I'm going to try and tackle each character as objectively as possible, and not look too much into how they make me feel. So let's see where I stand on the liking Starlight thing for Lily's standards.
Everyone who isn't immediately hypnotized by a single cute face, that Starlight is a character that we shouldn't want to bludgeon with a sledgehammer.
Fine, I don't need to see Starlight's cute face. I just gotta figure out a not cute face. Not a cute face, not a cute face, not a cute face. Oh, this is what happens when you have no social life and rave on the internet. Oh, that's it! There we go, now let's take a look at Lily's argument. Actually, this video isn't about Lily, so let's not directly call her out anymore. I mean, if I were to give some criticism on Lily, it could be... No, yeah, that's right. Not the main point of discussion, because I'm only here to talk about Sunset in regards to the points against Starlight's reformation. Wait, the video was about redemption? Oh boy, this is gonna be a while.
The key message here is, you didn't buy her turnaround? Yeah, neither did them. By contrast, Starlight is put under the supervision of Twilight in her castle, but enjoys the luxury of anonymity.
Let's talk about the cast first. Now, I know it's always been a huge debate of Sunset getting the scrutiny and Starlight getting the celebration, but while it's implied that there is only one way a redemption should be done, I have one question to ask for this cast. Why? Why are each of these characters treated the way they are? How did Sunset and Starlight differ when it came to each cast? Let's see what Starlight thinks is her biggest issue to be regretful for.
You steal the cutie marks from an entire village, and then get defeated by Twilight and her friends, so you travel through time to get back at them, but they beat you again! And I used to be a dictator who ran a village with an iron hoof. Manipulated an entire town into giving up their talents so they wouldn't think they were special.
And Sunset?
We're pretty bad at the fall formal. A demon. I turned into a raging she-demon.
Must be nice to have everyone always looking to you for answers to their problems, instead of waiting for you to cause a problem.
Turned an entire school into my own personal zombie army in hopes of conquering a distant pony world.
Yes, the demon thing, which plenty of people have gone on to say wasn't really her. But you know what was Sunset? That bully was Sunset. The Sunset they first met, and the only Sunset they've ever known. She came into their world and took it over. You know, like all the other villains. Compare that to what Starlight did. She went out and found a little secluded area and established a town. Not took it over, created it. She did not impose onto other ponies' lives, they were imposed into hers. It makes you wonder the kind of ponies and the mindset they were in to lead them out here in the middle of nowhere. Unfortunately, it's unclear and I doubt we'll ever get an answer, but one thing is clear. Starlight brought them together, and despite a major hiccup, they still stayed together. This became their home. Starlight was certainly not taking her campaign across Equestria. She was letting them come to her, and happy with whoever she could find, as long as they didn't get too out of her line. After all, Starlight's village is now theirs, but she was still their founder. She was one of them and still could have been if she never lied. On the other hand, this is not Sunset's school. She did not bring them together. In fact, most of her time there was spent tearing them apart. She was never one of them, so when she wants to finally be, she understandably has to earn it. Starlight already earned it, she just had to rekindle it with no more lies, no more deceit. She's just to be one of them, and that's exactly what she did. Starlight threw herself at their mercy, lower than their level, and they made the call. Sunset did none of those things. She viewed herself as new, as changed, as the same level as all the other students, and they were not ready to accept that. Not yet. And then for the audience to not believe themselves for Sunset. Is this referring to the audience not believing she is truly good, or not believing she is a worthwhile character? Answer the latter. We begin Rainbow Rocks and go through the entirety with nothing that resembles Sunset Shimmer from the first movie, except for maybe a little anger moment, but we'll get to that later. The reason it's easy to take Sunset in as a new character is not because she is changing her ways from how she once was. No, she's been broken from them entirely and left a discarded mess for the movie to then build her up from. Am I saying this is a bad way to handle her character? No, because like it's been established, she was practically a non-threat in the first movie. So what's the point in keeping her that way? They have wiped all the flaws from the previous Sunset and started with a clean slate with her character in this movie. So that's where the comparison should stop immediately. Looking at Starlight, even in her first episode appearance after Reformation, we still see there is still a remnant of her old destructive manipulative behavior, with and without being reminded of it, but we'll also get to that as well. Here, Starlight is not over her old ways, because she was not meant to be. They are her personality. This would be like taking away Discord's personality because it's too much of a reminder who he is. Still, there is the fact he is called out for his actions almost immediately in his next appearance. Starlight gets none of that treatment and instead calls herself out through,
she's developed a guilt complex because she was never properly punished for her crimes. Starlight has to keep reminding the audience about everything she's done because there's no outside force reminding her about it to drive the conflict.
This idea of guilt is an interesting one, and I'm prepared to say there is more to her than just guilt. But let's talk about these instances of guilt. The idea that she brings up guilt in her past for no reason is absolutely false, except once. Going through each of her appearances, she never felt guilty or depressed until a catalyst was brought into play. Starlight starts off the crystalline cheerfully awaiting new friendship lessons. It's not until Twilight mentions Sunburst that she begins to lose it. This is a logical reason to feel guilty for what she's done. She now has to face the pony who started her on her destructive path, and brace herself for how he would react to this whole situation. This would be the equivalent of Sunset facing Celestia, which finally arrives thanks to Forgotten Friendship. Here we see Sunset give a very heartfelt apology, and forgiven entirely word of mouth, not actually showing she's changed, almost like Equestria relies on the impression one gives when reconciling. Still, other times she is definitely hesitant about going back, unless of course it's to see Twilight, who has already gotten over her misdemeanors. However, when it comes to feeling guiltless around those who have no judgment, no second chances is the argument against this, and it forces the guilt out for the sake of the plot. Starlight has anonymity in Equestria, so why does she need to stress and feel guilty about her past so much that ponies are judging her for it? The answer is so she can relate to Trixie. An easier solution could have been for Starlight to start worrying that her lack of social skills is going to lead to her saying or doing something and embarrassing herself in front of others. Something we've actually seen. Then when she goes to de-stress and meets Trixie, she maybe flubs again. But Trixie brushes it off, saying she doesn't mind since ponies judge her and she's not going to be the one to judge. This is what gets Starlight's attention. And even better, this can justify her resistance to change, because she's found a pony who likes her for her. Unfortunately, the route we take is character development for Trixie and Twilight, and the episode does have Starlight give off several guilt-trippy moments. That's just the tone of the episode itself, as every character messes up in one way or another, and through guilt and sharing of emotions, each come to an understanding. Even still, Starlight doesn't learn much, and in the end, she was in the right for trusting Trixie for the most part, and that air about her in this episode is one mark against her character. Luckily for us, we have every little thing she does, and no, we can skip this one. Despite what people say, this entire episode is self-contained except for one mention of her friendship with Trixie. There is no mention of her past, and no guilt brought upon others for relapsing into her old ways. You have no idea how much I hate the argument that this is a relapse episode. Finally, there's To Wear and back again. And the guilt here is immediate when she gets this letter back from her old town. So why? Why does she feel guilty about going back to this town that have accepted her turnaround so easily? Maybe because she didn't want to go back. She wanted to leave and forget everything that she messed up in the world and start anew. Maybe that's why she feels so guilty more often than not, because she wants to escape her past mistakes and live her happy life in the castle and anonymously in Ponyville, quietly to herself, but life keeps throwing her back into it to face her past head on. Sunset does not face her past unless she is thrown back into Equestria. Any other time is to relate to someone or to ignore it entirely, because it doesn't matter anymore. There is no old Sunset. There never was an old reformed to new Sunset. There was an old, then broken down completely until she had nowhere to go but up, to new Sunset. Starlight still shows old behaviors of her past self. She is not entirely changed from the pony she once was, so it will take time to do that. Good thing she's going to take these challenges with stride, right?
Nobody likes a chronic sulk. These characters get untold amounts of praise from large sections of the internet because insecure people who hate themselves love to spend a lot of time on the internet partaking in self-pity instead of self-improvement.
Sorry, but Starlight is a very happy character, and the things that make her mope are self-brought on from the world. She is happy with her magical studies, happy to find a friend who she relates to, not because said friend also hates herself and the past she had, but a friend who remains happy and confident despite the disdain others feel toward them, despite the pressures they may put on themselves. Trixie is part of what makes Starlight's life better. Of course, for Sunset, there is no time to mope when the stakes are raised, because her friends and the school are in danger, and she's probably been moping the entire time off camera between the end of the first Equestria Girls movie and the beginning of Rainbow Rocks. She had made no progress during that time despite being a little friendlier with her friend circle, and even then, she still never asserted herself to be a part of the band. It's tried to be painted as they weren't accepting of her as a member because they didn't want to be associated, but the truth is, Sunset didn't trust herself to be a part of this friend circle. The girls hold no disdain toward her. They would have easily accepted her as part of the band if she wanted, and only if she wanted. Why did Twilight become a member of the band before she did? Because she wanted to help their cause. You cannot say a character is facing the problem when she is constantly lowering herself down to not be worthy enough to fix it. Even the sirens push her down. They fed into her insecurity that the Rainbows don't truly accept her. You know, despite openly inviting her to band rehearsals, lunch breaks, and sleepovers. Though at least in the chumminess range Starlight is in now, maybe even more. For the sirens, Sunset is not an equal to them. She is just another pawn. And this was a missed opportunity for some internal conflict of whether she is really on the right side. Even skipping ahead to Forgotten Friendship, the stakes were there during her reunion with Celestia. Starlight knows nothing but her mentor's approval would have been lost by not reuniting with Sunburst at first. She knows Twilight is the expert, and without her there, she understandably doesn't have the self-confidence yet. As for Sunset, she had to get Celestia's help, otherwise she would never live a happy life again. So when the stakes are actually introduced, conflict. Starlight doesn't feel she is worthy enough to face her old friend and avoids actually talking, raising the stakes. The Crystal Empire is thrust into eternal winter with the destruction of the Crystal Heart. Resolution. Starlight voluntarily faces Sunburst because she believes he can help, and in doing so, both are able to express their past mistakes and get over them. Then for the finale, conflict. Starlight is happy with her simple life in Ponyville and worries taking on a leadership role again will have her rely on her old ways. Raising the stakes. All the important ponies are kidnapped and her and a ragtag group of characters, one that wants nothing to do with the villain, one that wants nothing to do with any perilous situation, and one that feels completely useless without his magic, that he's relied on all his life, during which there is no moping, maybe a little stressing, something Sunset did as well, but no moping. Resolution. She takes this leadership with stride and sees the good qualities of a leader in herself. The only time she ever mopes is when the world gives her no stakes, when the moping is brought on by something else entirely like failing a lesson. Moping like Sunset probably had before Rainbow Rocks. The only problem for Starlight is these stories were decidedly built upon her conflict, not having her conflict interwoven with that of another. Sunset is not the main conflict of the movie, unlike Starlight in her episodes. That is the unfortunate nature of the show and a huge issue for her, when a character is the starring role in an episode and the episode is going to be about them and no other character. It's unfortunate because Starlight does need the more work of the two. Starlight, by the nature of her inception, is a character that has purposely halted her development. She determined an unchanging philosophy and lived by it her entire life since a filly. Sunset, while on a darker path, was still developing as a normal human, and just needed to shift focus off of her and onto her new friendships. A different method than building Starlight up from a stunted development. Luckily for her,
Starlight has been around for 2.5 seasons now and has yet to have anything close to the quality development that Sunset received. Oh, she's had a lot of episodes where she plays straight man to a far more interesting character.
This is where it all gets subjective. One cannot easily compare the development of a character in a movie versus development of a character in a series, and a slice of life series for that matter. Each of Starlight's episodes have been devoted to fix a flaw in her past, her character, and she is still going, because she is not written to become a main character. Sunset needed to be developed immediately to be a part of the group, because she needed to take the leadership roles for the next several movies, because she is no longer just the main focus character. This Twilight is too. This is why for the next movie, her only conflict is the stress of magic in the world, one brought upon by an outside source that leads to justified anger when her friends are in danger, and leads again to her rallying together her friends' strength to defeat the problem, learning to just accept the magic that they've been given, and that she is truly the perfect leader they need and no longer need to rely on Twilight for help. Then the next movie, nothing is wrong. She is again the perfect leader, completely flawless in how she handles herself, not facing any internal conflicts. Conflict. Sunset feels she's being left out for having no powers. Oh wait, never mind, she did have them all along, they just weren't present to her. How about conflict? Sunset is jumping to conclusions too quickly, possibly hurting her friend, accusing someone she likes. Rising action, no wait, it's Gloriosa, and the fact that Sunset believed it was Timber was never an issue, so no resolution on that part. This is where Sunset was heading in her leadership role and presence as a character, with no issues or conflicts with herself or the other characters. Until Mirror Magic. But even then, the rest of the characters push her worries aside, and she instead falls back on, oh no, not her! She's not developed enough to give a lesson, right? So let's talk about Starlight's development. It's slow. Like,
really slow.
And if that's an issue for people, that's understandable. But it's not an issue for her or her character. Every episode Starlight is in, she's learning something new, learning the next best way to develop one method at a time, because that's how the show operates. The show is not going to throw immediate resolution on a character, because then you lose the potential for new episodes. An episode about facing others in spite of your mistakes. An episode about making the right call when it comes to how much you trust your friend. They can make mistakes, but they stay sincere in their friendship. An episode about being too comfortable with what you're good at, and relying on that when it comes to facing a challenge and missing the point of the challenge at hand. She is slowly learning when magic is necessary, when to follow through with her first instinct, and when not. It's a process for her, and in the meantime, she is also being eased in the cast in her own merits, and the merits the show has allowed. It's interesting when the topic of forcing Starlight into the series is brought up, and an inevitable conclusion will result in Sunset feeling like a more fleshed out character because of her appearances, contrary to Starlight. And I can't argue with that. However, this does bring up one flaw in Sunset's execution for Equestria Girls. Her friendship is magic, Starlight has her fans, but there are also plenty that love Twilight, Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash, Spike, because they're also developing in each of their own episodes. But shift the focus over to the Equestria Girls series, and who is the main draw? Exactly. Sunset is the face of Equestria Girls, a series of the official main 7, but who actually draws the fans in? How many fans does this Applejack have? What about this Rainbow Dash? Spike the dog? Sunset has wonderfully developed, but she's either developed individually or as a team, and the rest of the team doesn't develop with her. What are this Applejack's aspirations? What are this Rainbow Dash's flaws that isn't just copied from this Rainbow Dash? It took until the shorts to realize they had lives outside of the school. With all the complaints about Starlight being copied characteristics from other characters and Sunset having her own, yes, that's true, because she is the only one, except for maybe parts of Sidechwy. Every other character you get exactly from Friendship is Magic, and still, none of the characters are as impulsive or severely blunt as Starlight, because of how much they've already developed in their 7-season-long friendship. Sunset developed along with the characters of her cast, while Starlight is playing catch-up with hers. And even then, there was a developed distance with the main 6 for a reason. She has developed to think differently than the others, and has benefited in life immensely for it. Sunset is perfectly one of the humane 7. Starlight is not, and that development is right where she needs to be in life. Lastly, this brings us to...
We're now stuck with a character who, despite being given a massive amount of prominence in the series, has shown extremely little progression. Her one defining factor being her fascist philosophy has been swept under the rug, and she's been left with... what exactly? Kites?
Over-reliance on magic, overconfidence in her initial ideas, expanding on her confidence in a leader in, I don't know, school setting. I could say the same thing about Sunset. Oh, there's more to expand upon. The question is Equestria Girls series going to do so? Are they really going to go back on the ideas scrapped in the past, or are we just going to get more high school drama with her appearances becoming less and less complex? Of course, that is partly due to the format of the shorts, so I'm not going to jump to conclusions till we get more full-length material. But that's what I'm getting with Sunset's flaws, or rather lack of flaws, in that none of her appearances are giving her conflict anymore. The only conflict we're getting is this worry of outside magic, but that's less of a flaw needed to be fixed, and more of a leadership trait imposed on her, because no one else is going to know what to do when dealing with magic, so she is going to be the one to do it. Kind of like the tech guy of the group. All her other appearances show when she has no magical threat, she's just a regular high school girl, and best friend like the rest of them, except she's good at everything. Good thing her design lets her stand out. I will say Forgotten Friendship did finally treat her like an individual character again, even bringing her anger more into the conflict and tackling a more internal conflict along with an external one. Yet, the special still feels very self-contained, and Sunset is back to being perfect by the end because she has no enemies anymore and understands the value of showing and not just saying you're nice. So then there's the issue of where Starlight is going. Yet, let's talk about where she's been. We have the Crystalling showing she is capable of facing her fears and letting go of her emotional baggage, but yet still keeping this mainly to herself, which leads into No Second Prances, where this sharing of baggage, albeit unjustly for the sake of the plot, with another has allowed her new ways to create friendships, but not before failing at first because she has the tendency to instantly and self-centeredly rely on magic to suit her wants, which leads into every little thing she does. And going back to missing the point, many are quick to point out that Starlight fails at social interaction because of her reliance on magic, but there's a problem with what leads to that magic use, because the spell was a result of a larger mistake, and Twilight sees this. Starlight cast that spell so she could handle each of their demands at her own pace. But why is she bombarded with demands? Because she's doing all the lessons at the same time, which we learned in the end is not how you need to approach this to succeed. It'd be different if Starlight just invited each of the main 6 over and in a controlling way wanted to head each of the products herself because she does not want to deal with their input on her own. But that's not what happens. She approached the problem wrong from the beginning and learns the importance of not just relying on magic, but seeing the point in not just getting the task done, but to actually kindle the friendship by working together, which leads to Where and Back Again, where she shares her worries immediately with her friends to lessen the stress, and is challenged with solving the issue without her magic crutch, and facing the challenge of leadership again. Of course, leadership is not what she wants, as she's happy with where she is, but will certainly be more confident and willing to put herself out there, leading to All Bottled Up, where she uses her strength to teach her friend, and taking from every little thing she does, knows not to cast spells on others selfishly, but on herself for unselfish reasons to keep her emotions from hurting her friend. This mindset of figuring out the right intentions leads to a royal problem, where she had good intentions with her magic, but still enacted them rashly and without warning. Yet everything turned out fine, no one was harmed besides almost herself, and she made the right call, which leads to Change a Changeling, where the intentions were good, yet the plan was just as rash, and with the immediate danger, she is rightfully called out on this behavior, and she has yet to do that since after finally being called out for it. There is no shame for fans to admit that Starlight messed up here, but unlike many of her detractors throwing this as an excuse for lack of development, just like every little thing she does, there's a broader reason for why she did wrong. She makes this plan to appease Pharynx, but he is not here. Why? Because she said he was a lost cause. What caused her to say that?
But it goes against everything I've been taught as Twilight's pupil. Everything I've been taught. Everything.
Exactly. She did not follow her teachings. It's not that she didn't learn from it. She made the decision to not follow them and suffers for it. And does she not take that to heart? Sure, there's the over-the-top spell she used in Uncommon Bond, but that was after Twilight told her to show Sunburst some magic, and after Sunburst expressed interest in the spell. The finale even shows how far Starlight has come to thinking through your actions and expanding more on her empathy toward those who have made mistakes. Determined to understand the story behind Stygian and challenge the mindset the Pillars had back in the day. She even challenges Twilight on her own morals she has learned and taking her new way of friendship to heart and expressing it. She's showing appreciation to Twilight not just as a friend, but as the teacher who didn't give up or in, but gave her that second chance. On top of that, Starlight has so many relations to expand upon. Sunburst, her old home, another village episode. There are countless possibilities where she's at. Who can Sunset expand a strained relationship with? No one, at least in the human world. Her entire past is in Equestria, and with the big relationship of that finally tackled, it's clear Sunset's gonna stay right where she is. This is why Sunset stopped being the less interesting character for me. She's at a standstill, and shown very minimally in the support, and I'm not gonna lie and say Starlight hasn't become that as well. But even then, Starlight is able to support other characters and their conflicts. These characters that, what was that description?
Characters with infinitely more personality and sympathetic development.
Yeah, I've seen people who despise Trixie in spite of all Starlight has been through. That phrase is about as subjective as you can get. Okay, no need to go further. However, I want to touch on the subjectivity of some Starlight fans out there who tried their hardest to excuse Starlight's execution from the beginning. So let me introduce you to...
Alright, every viewer.
Okay.
It's about that, oh god. So about this being a good episode.
This is the reaction channel Smurf Vlogs, who reacts to all sorts of TV shows and movies, among them being MLP. And while I truthfully do not watch his videos, mostly because I've never been into solo commentaries, unless they're on my videos because that's the kind of narcissistic person I am, I do know he had a rough patch when it came to Starlight in the show. Hating her reformation and subsequent appearances, he didn't warm up to her until the Season 6 finale and eventually began to love her character by Season 7, even going out of his way to make an apology video for her fans. But these fans needed to realize he had to go through the process of warming up to her in his own time like they did, and not bombarding him with their viewpoint until he was caught up. But why am I bringing him up specifically? Well, because at the time of this video, while being caught up with Friendship is Magic, he has only seen the first Equestria Girls movie. So that entire time he was experiencing Starlight's character, he never had that Sunset bias that plenty of fanatics will accuse detractors of. He actually doesn't like Sunset right now. Hopefully that'll change by Rainbow Rocks. But if that isn't proof that Starlight's execution has not been perfect and people are making excuses, I don't know what is. This video could not have been made after the Season 5 finale. Maybe only part of it after the Season 6 finale. I can only keep doing these because despite obvious mistakes being made with Starlight, they have also been improved and worked upon with every appearance, and I can finally say it was the right call to not treat her like another Sunset. Their character paths were not comparable. The only way to handle them is to keep them in character and let them live out their own destinies, whether it's taking the leadership roles or taking it slow with simple friendships. I'm there to watch how it all unfolds for both either way. Starlight, keep working through those flaws and hopefully contribute a little more to the cast. I know the future's looking bright for you. And Sunset, now that you have a place in the world, find some internal conflict, or just conflict in general with others, as I'm looking forward to problems you'll face and hopefully won't just be the solution for. I'm not a Starlight fan who likes Sunset for nothing. And with that, I think it's time to call the conclusion that Starlight has not had the best execution, but it could not have been done any way similar to Sunset, due to her entire standing in her franchise and the way the franchise has built itself around her and not the other way around, which is far easier to manage and execute. They've found and will continue to develop their friendship and the role in the cast despite their flaws, even though it's clear that this conclusion that is not brought upon by whoever may be watching and judging me. Obviously, Sunset is better. Roll it!
Better than ever.